We're
We're
back.
live.
We're live.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you, Coach Raymond, for coming back.
I'm glad to be here.
Um, Welcome back to the discussion on the four agreements with Coach Raymond Nazon of the SBG. In previous talks, we reviewed the first agreement, be impeccable with your word. The second agreement, don't take things personally. The third agreement, don't make assumptions. And now we have the fourth agreement, always do your best. And so each of these agreements has been building on the other. And the fourth agreement kind of supports all of the previous agreements. So if we just do our best in any situation, we essentially lower the risk of self harm to ourselves and to others. And right before we came into the call, I was telling Coach Raymond how I was nervous about going live. Like each time we have our live, it's still all new to me, and I get a little nervous. And we were talking about like some of the fears around that, like using the four agreements. And I had said that if I was my biggest fear was that something technologically was going to go wrong, and then we explored a little bit further into that, and it was because I pride myself on being reliable, that I was afraid that if I didn't show up properly for the live, then people would not come back. Coach Raymond, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, we all have that kind of fear and going into any type of presentation, I believe. And first of all, it's not abnormal to have those. But where is it coming from on the four agreements? If you looked at the four agreements, which one would you say? Well, first of all, Amaline, would you say that you're taking your show a little personally?
Yeah, I guess it's a reflection of me. I'm in a camera.
Yes.
I'm being viewed. I'm being heard,
Yes.
and so yeah,
Now, would you
I'm
say you're making an assumption about what your viewers would think of you should you not show up?
yes, I'm making an assumption that they would not come back.
Right. Now, are you impeccable in your own word by stating such a comment because you don't know? I mean, because you've made an assumption, right?
Yeah, I made the assumption. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Right. You're getting ahead of yourself. So that means impeccability of your word is also broken in a way, right?
I'm making an assumption,
Right.
and I think it's more than. And I guess you're right. The impeccability of my word is also being compromised.
Compromised, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you think to yourself with the four agreements, are you doing your best at that time
I don't think I'm doing what's best
for
overall
you?
because I am in a way because I'm being aware of it and I'm talking
Yes.
about it.
Yes,
I'm
you are. Yes,
exposing
you
it.
are. Yes, you are.
And in that
Good
way, I
one. I
think I'm
like that.
doing my best.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I love that. No, I love how you put that. That's right. That's right. Because that's how we learn by being aware. In the book, it talks about
Yeah.
the mastery of awareness is the first thing.
Yeah.
We're going to be messing up, and this is a practice that we do over and over and over again. But the mastery of awareness, by being aware of these four agreements that we have made, will sharpen our, the swords from then on, where we can do better the next time.
And I'm already getting emotional. I'm already tearing up because I feel relief. I don't know. Maybe it's just, why do we cry? I don't know. But I feel like when there's a movement of some kind of emotion coming through us, that it can well up our eyes and we start to cry and tear up, even though I'm not sad. I'm actually very relieved. Um, and last week you brought up emotions, how our moods can change because energy is in motion, right? And that's what
Hmm.
emotions mean.
Hmm.
And we decide whether or not they take over us.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
One of the things I would like to clarify a little bit, and I'm glad you mentioned emotions, because you felt like something moved you. I am curious a little bit about what moved you there. Did you feel more like, hey, I'm you're moving forward because you did catch yourself in a moment where you're not quite in your agreements that you wanted to be a part of?
I'm happy because I was able to be vulnerable.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm
And
proud of
per-
myself.
yeah, perhaps it's something to learn maybe going forward from here. One of the things I want to be clear about is because, I'm trying to learn as much as you are, and thinking about it this whole week. What is an agreement? So I looked it up. An agreement is mutual consent. All parties involved must agree to the terms. What does that mean? That means that if I have these agreements, it's going to be to myself. I'm assuming, right? Now I made an assumption, so I bet it depends on the person. For me, I'm making these agreements to myself. These four agreements are for me, strictly for me, right? Okay,
It's something I think you're confirming to know,
right.
to understand, to have an
Yes,
understanding, and that's a belief.
yes. That is a belief. The second part is legally binding. Often agreements are legally enforceable, meaning they can be upheld in a court of law.
Mm,
Let's be honest. Remember, he talks about judgments.
yeah,
Well,
it is.
that's one of the things that we need to be aware of. So if we break an agreement, we will feel judgment.
Yeah,
And what he's trying to say is make these agreements to yourself so you don't feel judgment, right?
right. Which he goes into a lot in that chapter we're going to talk about for breaking of the agreements.
Yes.
I
What
really feel like, yeah.
No, that's true. He does. On the third part of an agreement, according to what I pulled up, it says offer and acceptance. One party makes an offer and the other accepts it. So within
Mm,
yourself, I made an offer that I'm going to follow the four agreements, and that I've accepted it within myself. And then finally, consideration. There is usually something of value exchanged between parties. What of value that we have exchanged with making this agreement to take on the four agreements? This is the point of heaven and hell. I am accepting this agreement to get myself out of my own hell. That's the way I see it. Would you like to tell me what you see?
yeah, I'm saying that, like, I feel like there's the awareness, and then there's a decision being made of choosing not to continue to agree to something so that you can change and make a new agreement. And by choosing to follow the four agreements, um, we're on the path. We're not
We
saying
are.
like we're going to be perfect at doing it. That's why this fourth agreement of always do your best, I think, is definitely needed as part of this following up. You know, how
Yes,
can we do our best? How can we be our best?
that's right.
Because he talks about, we function our best when we're getting the proper nourishment,
Right.
having plenty of rest. We're sober and are positive, basically lowering our stress states. Those things are necessarily, those things aren't constants in our lives. We can aim for those things, but therefore we can only do our best to the degree of our physical, mental, and emotional health.
I like that. One of the things that I also like about the book is, Don Miguel Ruiz is the um, not he's the one that's willing to give this message out. This is from the Toltec wisdom that goes far back, that knows about the dream of hell that we're living in. So to me, he is just a messenger giving us this message. But he says so in the book that there are other messengers that's given the same type of message. One of them was Jesus, Buddha. All of those, the idea is to get the outside of the hell, outside of the self judgment. And I have to admit, I like that because I feel like these wisdoms can be, it's given to us through the ages. Should we choose to listen? That's a different story. And I feel like for me, the four agreements that are there, look, I have problems with keeping track of things. I can keep track of four things. If that's my priority, I try every single day to see, hey, am I following the four agreements when I do X, Y, Z? Sometimes I get a little tired. Sometimes I'm like a little bit worn out, and I just act and react, and then the
Is
four
he
agreements go out the window.
he talks about like how there's a lot of messages around us all the time,
Yes.
and we get a lot of messages conflicting within our own mind. Like we can believe one thing and believe another thing, and then find that those two things conflict with one another. He calls it the mitote or something like that.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, so that's why we can only do our best in each moment of our lives, and we just need to take time and awareness. But like he was talking about, like, well, just like when one becomes like a carnivore, you increase the meat while you starve out the sugar in the plants. So doing the best you can each day, making the conscious choice to
Love it.
override desires and thoughts for poisonous addictive substances or poisonous and addictive emotions that aren't good for us. And then eventually those addictions lose their hold over us. And I do believe that the stronger that your bodies become in health, that the more you can easily override these addictive emotions and destructive behaviors following the four agreements. I think it helps. And he talks about taking care of your body. But he also talks about not overdoing it. Like if you push beyond doing your best into, I think you were mentioning this last call too, like pushing yourself to the point of like beyond what you really should be doing for stress wise. um and also, like, if when you're in a state of weakness and illness and you can't find your way out of that, it does feel like you're always in a constant state of overdoing just to keep your head above water, and that
Yes.
can become addictive even when you're kind of out of that weakened state. You're still in the mentality of trying to do more than what you're doing because you've just been used to doing that. I think that's been also something that I'm trying to unravel for myself.
I love
And
that on that. Always do your best. That was very important because for me, being a sick person like we know what it feels like to be sick, and there are some days I can't get out of bed. Back then I just couldn't. I couldn't
yeah,
function.
how do you find the proper balance between
Right.
overdoing and not doing? And a lot of
Right.
our SBG members often go like, how do you know when you're really hungry?
Right.
Because we've just been so confused
Right.
with the mixed messages that we're not hearing our own body's wisdom,
That's right.
through all of that. And I think
Right.
that's where it comes down to, uh, trying to make that quiet time to listen inside to what it is that you really need.
Yes. Or it gets to the point where if you push through, you will crash at some point.
You will be forced
You'll
down.
be forced down. And I've felt that many times. Yeah.
Exactly. I
So,
was just flashback. I was in California. I had adrenal fatigue. I was still doing these meetup hikes, and I had gone down to the pinnacles, and I literally had a hard time keeping up with everybody. And the day after, I couldn't walk for 3 days after because I insisted on going on this hike.
yeah.
And I wanted to live life so bad that I was hurting myself because I was sick of being sick and waiting to get better. And then I would have these imbalances, like these doing these extra things just because I had no patience left. I just was like, I got to move on with my life. I got to live life, right?
Right.
Um it was fear of missing out. I was sick of not doing the things I love to do. And so you get pushed down, and then it reminds you again, like, you're overdoing it.
Yeah.
That's not taking care of yourself.
And
That's
to
not
be
really where
honest,
your joy is.
exactly. I mean, you're literally creating a hell of pain, of suffering, and we're doing this to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like our personal hell, like what the book keeps saying. Why do we do that? Right?
Yeah.
And because of fear of missing out or another insecurity or any of that, right? But
And
we
coming back to judging
and
ourselves,
judging
trying to
ourselves. That's
prove
right. We should
ourselves.
be doing this. We should be
We
better. We
should be.
should look like this or like that. Right.
And he says it doesn't matter as long as you have done your best. You'll
Yes.
break the spell of guilt, blame, and
Yes.
self punishment.
That's right. And it's kind of funny, and I know maybe not all biblical people will agree with this on what I say, but I in the Bible, I think it was big about the judge should be left to God. But yet we judge all the time. We
All the
judge
time.
each other, we judge ourselves. We constantly think, well, what do we think? We're gods, that we have the right to judge
And subconsciously judging, and that's where we have
and
to bring our
subconsciously
awareness
judging.
like back to
Right.
like, oh, that was a judgment
Yes.
when we hear it.
I'm judging the judgment right now. But anyways, yeah. So, uh, yes.
Yeah.
It gets a little confusing though, I have to admit. The more I think about it, I get in this weed trying to figure it out. But at least I'm
Right.
there. I'm happy to be there.
It's okay as long as we're in the sorting process.
That's right. Sorting process. Yes. How
um
about a card, real quick?
okay, let's do a card.
All right.
Wait, Coach Raymond, tell
Yes,
everybody
tell
about the
me.
cards because I don't think
Oh,
everybody knows where the
for
cards
the
are coming from.
for those who have joined us in the past, we'll pull a card just out of random, but I bought some cards about the four agreements. So right now we're going to be talking about always do your best. So I don't know how many cards there are for always do your best, but I have a few cards about always do your best, and it seems to steer our conversation wherever it goes. Did I say it properly, you think?
I think so. And I just transitioned us to see a feed. So if you're here and you're from the SBG, please write us a comment in our feed. We want to know that you're here. We want you to participate in the conversation. We'd love, even if you're not in SBG, anybody who's watching, we'd love for you, if you would like a card, you can pop up and say, I'd like a card.
Oh, how do we know anybody's watching us right now?
Well, I pulled up the live and I have, it's supposed to be streaming
Okay.
comments on our screen when they come up.
Hopefully somebody sees us.
Yay, David's here. Thank you
Ah,
for
David.
doing
Perfect.
that. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
showing up.
Thank you for being here. At least we're not just talking to each other, which would be fine too.
It's pretty good.
So. All right. So a card.
Yeah, let's do a card.
All right. So it says, always do your best. Your best is changing all the time. Your best will depend on whether you are refreshed in the morning or tired at night. Your best will be different when you are happy as opposed to upset, or healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best, and you will avoid self judgment, self abuse, and regret.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're, he also says, mentions that when you're doing less than your best, you subject yourself to frustrations, self judgment, regrets, right? So, yeah, that's still, I think that's the leading cause for defensiveness in a person,
I
right?
agree.
Like, we notice that some people can't handle realizing they have yet to do their best and to resist thinking about it. They choose to be in denial to block out the truth of making a mistake, um, the refusal to take accountability because it's painful, right? I think somewhere in the book he talks about it like the truth being like a cut.
Oh, yes. Cut the skin on
There's
the
a cut
cut.
of the
Yeah, that one's
skin in
good.
it.
That one's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we read that last week?
We didn't read it
We should read
because I
that one.
think it is in this. Is it in this chapter? It might
I
be in
hope you
this
marked it.
chapter.
But
Uh, yeah. I know.
I,
Go ahead.
I do want to say about always do your best. The reason I think always do your best is very important because first of all, he goes and follows it with three masteries. One of them is the mastery of awareness. When you're always doing your best, you are aware. If you're not doing your best, I believe that you're
You're in the,
not aware of how you feel.
or you
Because
can
it says when you're
choose
sick
to
or when you're
be
right,
ignoring it. You
right,
can
or you could
choose.
choose to be ignoring it. That's right.
Literally, like that's what I feel like that denial is. Like,
Yes,
oh, I didn't make a mistake. Oh, I don't have to look at that.
right.
Because it's a protective stance. It's a defensive stance. But I have oh, there's this I flagged this part of the book. I'd like to read it. He
Good.
talks about, this is that part where he talks about how a man went to the master. So there was a man who wanted to transcend his suffering. So he went to a Buddhist temple to find a master to help him. He went to the master and asked, Master, if I meditate for 4 hours a day,
Oh, I love that.
how long will it take me to transcend? And the master looked at him and said, If you meditate 4 hours a day, perhaps you will transcend in 10 years. Thinking he could do better, the man said, Oh, master, what if I meditated 8 hours a day? That's twice as long, right? How long will it take me to transcend? And the master looked at him and said, If you meditate 8 hours a day, perhaps you will transcend in 20 years. But why will it take me longer if I meditate more? The man asked. And the master replied, You are not here to sacrifice your joy or your life. You are here to live, to be happy, and to love. If you can do your best in 2 hours of meditation, but you spend 8 hours instead, you will only grow tired, miss the point, and you won't enjoy your life. Do your best, and perhaps you will learn that no matter how long you meditate, you can live, love, and be happy.
I love that. You know, you can almost put that in a carnivore sense also.
It's
You know, the
definitely
carnivore harder kind of people.
carnivore
You know, I
harder.
was there. Yeah.
Or not even that, but like it reminds me of when I once calorie restricted.
Right.
Even on a
Right.
keto diet, I thought I could calculate and
Right.
formulate my way to health and weight loss
Yes.
faster. I
Yes.
thought I could even fast for a certain amount of hours to equate a
Yes.
specific loss of pounds on the scale. It took
Yes.
me longer than I would have liked to learn that scales don't measure health or quality of life.
Right.
That's a really hard thing to undo.
Yes.
Um,
I would have been carnivore a lot longer had I, because I am a 7 year carnivore, but I had a year where I was, first of all, I keto-ish, kept on falling and all that. But the thing is that if I just would have just done it and had that mindset of just not trying it to be perfect all the time, that's what made me fall every time.
Yeah, so he's saying do your best means being good to yourself
That's right.
and
Be good to
respecting your
yourself.
body.
Respect yourself. Yes.
And
Yes.
Michelle's here.
Oh, Michelle, great. Shall we do a card for
Let's do
anybody?
let's draw a card from Michelle.
For Michelle, sure. It says, "Don't overdo. Always be yourself." We were just talking about that. Always do your best, but don't overdo. When you overdo, you deplete your body and go against yourself, and it will take you longer to accomplish your goal.
Uh there's like this bit of
That's
crazy in
perfect.
humanity that we think we have to suffer or punish ourselves to receive rewards.
Yes, you're right.
And when we meditate on that, we see how wrong that is. And yet,
Yes.
like, we can quickly get stuck in that trap over and over. I often thought I had to work harder at something longer to get results, especially with exercising. Oh, I mean, like you can so overdo it and get nowhere.
Well, we're taught that in our culture. That's in society's dream. You work harder, you're gonna get better rewards. And of course, they don't tell you the little lie on that because that's not the case. You could bust your butt at work, work extra hours, and not even get recognized.
Not yes.
You know?
Right. Einstein said the definition of insanity, doing
It's
the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Right. That's just not the way.
not the way. Not the way.
But yeah,
Should we pick a card for David?
yeah, let's do for David.
Okay. It says, "Stay in the present moment. Keep your attention on today and stay in the present moment. This is the beginning of a new understanding, a new dream."
Yeah, that I feel like that refers a lot to the anxieties that we have about things that haven't even happened yet, you know.
What we were just talking about earlier, right before coming on. Yes.
Yeah, and you said something about some four other statements that you had come across.
Ah, yes, the four laws of the shaman.
Yeah, let's talk about those.
Okay. Um, the four laws of the shaman. It says the person who comes into our life is the right person. That's the first law. Actually, I should read the rest. It says, "This means that everyone we encounter has a purpose in our journey. whether to teach us something or to help us grow. Number two, what happens is the only thing that could have happened. This emphasizes acceptance and understanding that everything happens for a reason, even if it's not immediately clear. That's the second law. The third law of a shaman is any moment in which something begins is the right moment. This law encourages us to trust in the timing of events and to recognize that things start when they are meant to. And the final law, the fourth law, when something ends, it ends. This principle is about letting go and understanding that endings are a natural part of life,
Yes.
making way for a new beginning.
And that card that you brought up for David is about that like anxiety. And I think that's where anxiety comes from, those things. And if we, I love those four. I'm going to have to look into those and put them up on my space somewhere in my office and really get into I love that because I literally was nervous on the call, like on starting in this call today, thinking, thinking something bad was going to happen. And and often we have to, whatever happens is meant to happen. The short of it.
Yeah.
um,
It looks like that speaks true for David as far as it is what it is. I love that, David. That's right. It was meant to be what has happened. And I love that. It's very simple as that. No regrets. It just is. How can we learn from the event instead of the natural reaction for me is to beat myself up for an event that has happened and not be able to move on, or death in the family that I'll hold on to, uh, you know, for, and I understand the grieving process, I do, but holding on unnecessarily and not looking at moving on because of the certain said death.
um, it's like returning back to beating ourselves up.
Yes.
And it's weird, but like in medieval times, people used to whip themselves to
Yes.
atone
And
for their
flog themselves to
sins.
atone for the sins. Yes.
It was crazy, but like it was a way to repent. Often people whipped themselves to like distance themselves from pleasures and joy,
Right.
because it was literally believed that enjoyment was something like after you died, like when you entered the kingdom of God, and
Yes.
you had to earn through torment.
Yes.
So like think about how long ago that was and how much of that could have been carried forward to even now.
Oh, it
Um,
absolutely is. We punish ourselves in a different way. Probably. And hold up. Maybe not. Perhaps we punish ourselves through food, uh, drowning ourselves in the carbs and sugars or alcohol. We also abuse ourselves through. Um,
oh well, he mentions
yeah.
doing a job you hate to do just for your paycheck, living for the
Yes.
weekends, like how
Yes.
you're willing to put yourself through a 9 to 5 somewhere doing something you just don't love.
Right.
And if it's like he was saying, like if you're doing an action that you don't love, that's a big sign that it's a wrong action to be taking. But sometimes we believe that's the only way we can survive.
I'm glad you said that. And this card. Take action on your ideas.
Mm.
Doing your best means to take action. You can have many great ideas in your head, but without action upon an idea, there will be no manifestation, no results, and no reward.
Right. Oh, that is getting my butt into action.
Uh
I
oh.
can think
Uh
of things right
oh.
now because there's so many things that I want to do.
I know it is.
And but also just like I often wonder, like, what will people think of us centuries from now regarding the things that we do in our culture, doing to ourselves now that we're not seeing are
I've never
cruel.
thought of that.
Because if I look back at the Middle times, that's pretty cruel
Pretty cool.
to take a
Yeah,
whip and whip yourself
that's right.
so that you don't find joy in life.
Right. Right.
And I think that we do eat our emotions, like we kind of to pacify ourselves and do different things, to it's just kind of stuffing things down,
Hmm.
or we're nervous, we're stressed, we go to that, sometimes eating things, self-sabotage. Like we
Yes, of course.
literally will go to the thing that's hurting us for a temporary soothing somehow, like repenting in our own minds somehow with that thing.
I
And
agree.
as if there's a reward, like I don't know, but sometimes he says that we do certain things because we have this idea that there's going to be the reward, like going, like killing ourselves on an elliptical machine, you know um, actually putting ourselves through so strenuous exercise that hurts our body physically, thinking we're going to get muscular, we're going to look awesome.
Yes, and what's interesting about that is we have to ask ourselves this question: are we not happy about ourselves? Is that why we're doing it? What is the reason that we're doing what we do? What are we seeking? Is there a need that needs to be uh, that we're missing, that we want out of it?
Yeah, because I remember back in my 20s, I was working, corporate world in downtown San Francisco, and after work everybody we'd go to the bars and drink
Hmm.
after. So it's sort of like we're putting ourselves through working to get this paycheck, and then we're escaping ourselves getting drunk because we're not really enjoying our lives. Kind of at the end of the day, it's like, oh, we're going to reward ourselves in this way, which actually does a lot of harm. um, so yeah, I don't know. I think we are very confused about what are the, like, what are the true rewards in when we're doing our best. What is that?
Right.
Because if we tell ourselves, well, we're doing our best because we're in this career that maybe looks good on paper, provides us an income, we pay our bills with it, but then we turn around and we, put ourselves in a drunken state to escape this idea of what we thought was our best life, then it's not doing our best. Um, I think, and also, like, we're doing our best when we're facing our mistakes, so that we can learn to accept ourselves as we really are.
Yes. So uh, doing our best, regardless of quality, is the only thing you must ask of yourself. That's one of the things he says. You only ask of yourself to do your best given the condition of environment of yourself. So we need to realize what is our environment as far as what have we learned in the past? How is it going to, what agreements do I need to keep also? What agreements that I have or I am aware of that I have made an agreement with that I'm not even, no, I'm sorry, that I'm not even aware of, right?
Right.
So we still, even if we accept these four agreements, what about all these agreements that we have beforehand that we're not even aware of? So I think one of the biggest things to do if we're going to do our best is the first thing to find out is what agreements have we already made?
What agreements do you want to change?
And
Because
then what are the agreements you want to change?
you can
Yes.
only do your best if you want to.
Yes. Yes.
You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't really have the motivation to change, then
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing way I think about, like, I can pray or bless other people, but prayer doesn't work in a way, and if that person's not wanting that to be prayed for, if it's like you have to consent to wanting better things in your life and to be a better person. I feel like I could pray for somebody every day, but if they truly didn't want to heal, then they won't. um
Yeah. Shall we do another card?
Yeah, let's do another card.
Honor yourself.
Hmm.
Honor the man or woman that you are that you are. Take the risk to express your dream. Taking action is about living fully and expressing what you are. It's
Yeah.
hard to tell someone who we are without fear of judgment. Don't you think?
Yeah.
It's hard to go out in society and say, "This is who I am," and not even ask for society to accept us. Just say, "This is who I am."
Yeah, that's reminding me too. Like he says, action is about living life. Inaction is the way that we deny life. Um, like inaction is sitting in front of the television every day for years because you're afraid to be alive and to take the risk of expressing what you are. Expressing what you are is taking action. You can have many great ideas in your head, but what makes the difference is the action. Without action upon an idea, there will be no manifestation, no results, and no reward.
Hmm. Would action be same as intention?
No.
No. What's the difference?
Well, I
Intention is the
do
thought
believe
before the
that
action.
there is intent to do something, but then you actually have to do it. It's also the action, what kind of action you're making, the intention behind it.
Right, right. The intention behind the action. So first, yeah, okay, I got it. Okay. Yes.
Um, he also talks about one of my favorite parts about this chapter in particular of doing your best, always do your best, is he talks about letting go of the past as a way of doing our best because we're living in the present and God is life. I mean, I think on page he says, God is life in action. The best way to say, I love you, God, is to live your life doing your best. The best way to say, thank you, God, is by letting go of the past and living in the present moment, right here and now. Whatever life takes away from you, let it go. When you surrender and let go of the past, you allow yourself to be fully alive in the moment. Letting go of the past means you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now. And if you live in the past dream, you don't enjoy what is happening right now because you will always wish to be for things to be different than they are.
Yes.
There is no time to miss anyone or anything because you are alive. Not enjoying what is happening right now is living in the past and being only half alive. This leads to self pity, suffering, and tears. You were born to be with the right to be happy. You were born with the right to love, to enjoy, and to share your love. You are alive to take your life and enjoy it. Don't resist life passing through you because that is God passing through you. Just your
Mm.
existence proves the existence of God. Your existence proves the existence of life and energy. We don't need to know or prove anything, just to be. To take a risk and enjoy your life is all that matters. Say no when you want to say no. Say yes when you want to say yes. You have the right to be you. You only have you can only be you when you do your best. When you don't do your best, you are denying yourself the right to be you. That's a seed that you should really nurture in your mind. You don't need knowledge or great philosophical concepts. You don't need the acceptance of others. You express your own divinity by being alive and by loving yourself and others. It is an expression of God to say, "Hey, I love you." And that just brings right back to say, "Thank you, God," by letting go of your past. You know, I don't know, that part, like whatever life takes away from you, let that go. And when you surrender to let go of the past, you allow yourself to be fully alive in the moment. And so
Yeah.
to enjoy the dream happening right now.
Right now. Yes.
That's part of doing your best.
Mhm.
I know that I hung on to things in my past for a while.
You took it personally?
Probably, yeah. Uh, but look, I did my best.
That's
I'm
right.
I'm doing even better now.
Yes, yes, yes.
um, I'm
It's
not going to
interesting.
look back and judge myself.
That's right. There. Yes.
I'm just going to be honest where I am now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And would you agree that, or would you think that the past does make us who we are,
Unless we decide to
unless
break
we
the
decide
agreements.
that agreement needs to be broken? Speaking of, that's the next chapter, breaking old agreements, isn't it?
Yeah, it is breaking old agreements. But he also, I just want to bring it back to like him emphasizing doing our best, respecting our bodies, loving our
Yes.
bodies, letting go of the past,
Yes.
um, doing what feels good in our lives, joyful.
Joyful.
That's how we honor God.
Right.
Because every thought, every emotion, every belief, realize that every thought becomes a communication with God. That was one of the most powerful parts
Wow. That is good.
of that. And that we don't want to skip over talking about the warrior because he talks about that
Yes.
in this chapter too.
Yes.
Um, and I know it takes a warrior. It takes going to war with yourself. I mean, like your past with whatever to get to be. It says that's why you need to be a great hunter, a great warrior who can defend these four agreements with your life. Your happiness, your freedom, your entire way of living depends on it. The warrior's goal is to transcend this world, to escape from this hell, and never come back. As the Toltecs teach us, the reward is to transcend the human experience of suffering, to become the embodiment of God. That is the reward. We really need to use every bit of power we have to succeed in keeping these agreements. I didn't expect that I could do it at first. I have fallen many times, but I stood up and kept going. And I fell again and I kept going. I didn't feel sorry for myself. There was no way that I felt sorry for myself. I said, if I fall, I am strong enough, I am intelligent enough, I can do it. I stood up and I kept going. I fell and I kept going and going, and each time it became easier and easier. Yet in the beginning it was so hard, so difficult. So if you fall, do not judge. Do not give your judge the satisfaction of turning you into a victim.
Yes.
No, be tough with yourself. Stand up and make the agreement again. Okay, I broke my agreement to be impeccable with my word. I will start all over again. I'm going to keep the four agreements just for today. Today I will be impeccable with my word. I will not take anything personally. I will not make any assumptions and I am going to do my best. And if you break an agreement, begin again tomorrow and again the next day.
Wow. That was just like when we first started our live stream. You felt like you broke an agreement, and you're like, nope, I did my best, and I'm gonna get up and keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great example, I think. I love that part of that chapter.
Is there any more cards? Does anybody want a card?
There is. Well, first, I want to identify what David is talking about
Oh,
here. Do
yeah.
you
Let's look.
think that letting go of your past means to forget about it?
No.
If so, how do you learn what to do going forward?
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about that.
I know, like sometimes it helps to get rid of things physically, but to move on, but does it? Like I think it still takes something inside of us. Because I used to have like a whole bunch of stuff that I shared with a previous partner. And I realized every time I looked at that, we used to collect like rocks on every like hike or adventure. And I had this heavy amounts of cool stones sitting around, and every time I looked at them, I
You
got
thought of them.
down.
Mm,
It brought me down. And
hmm.
then I realized these rocks needed a new home and a new life. And I got rid of them. I put them on the curb, and I actually gave myself a new life when I did that because now I didn't look at them anymore. And it didn't create that pattern. It like broke the pattern of hanging on to my past.
So, would you say that these rocks represented a part of your past that you were feeling like was holding you down?
No, that I enjoyed.
That you
But
enjoyed.
I
Okay.
enjoyed that, but like no longer being with that person,
Oh, I understand.
that it was always bringing me to that
To
place,
that place. Got it. Got it.
not to the memories of like accumulating those stones. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that. Well, the way I see this, uh, not necessarily letting go of your past, I think, is to make your past personal. In your case, with that, you made it personal, like it was a relationship you had with this person. So that was a wise thing to do. Put it out on the curve. Here's the way I look at it. I practice karate, and every move that I make, when I make it there, I try to make it as intentional as possible, and I make mistakes. Now, eventually, I carry it on to the next session and the next session, but almost without true consciousness, even though I'm aware. It's different. Everything is a little bit different. So the past, the only way it's helped me is by being aware of that present moment that I was then in that past. But the new present moment is just being aware there. I never really can say I learned anything from that past as far as certain movements, but it did increase and I do get better. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like it's automatic because I am aware of the present. But I think the gift is about the present.
I think there are things
Take over,
that,
I'll be right back.
like, yeah, I think that there are things that um, we don't want to let go of, you know, but in a way, they're already out of our hands in the present. So we're only doing ourselves an injustice by hanging on to them. Um, and Michelle says, like, recognizing a trigger, feeling the emotion, remember the lesson, and then let it go. Yeah, I mean, I think if we choose the path of the warrior, then we're choosing to rebel against holding this agreement that things that happened to us in the past are still happening to us now, because they're whatever emotion that we still have about what happened in the past is then we're allowing it to haunt us in the present, you know. And it's very hard to do it. It's very hard to let it go, whatever that was. And also, we're almost afraid to let it go because we don't want to be continued to be hurt in the future. But the thing is, we're hurting ourselves every day by continuing to re-injure ourselves, opening that wound over and over. Um, it's just a hard thing to do. That's all I have to say about it. I'm not a master of it.
Yes. I'm. I see you're talking about the triggers and the emotions. Is that what you were talking about, Emily?
Yeah, I was talking about Michelle's comment
Michelle's
and
comment.
also
I love
David,
that. Yeah.
coming back to letting go of the past doesn't mean forgetting about it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we learn lessons in our past. Those things we don't want to forget, but we don't need to hang on to the emotional hurts that go along with it.
If it's emotional, I believe we learn on the present, not in the past. Why do I say that? When we get triggered in the present, but we're never, most of the time, we're not aware that we're triggered. And then it escalates and escalates. I've been actually trying to practice that lately. Where did my trigger start? And then I started reacting. But all of that took me to a place where I had to be mentally aware of my now. Oh, I'm triggered right now. Oh, I saw a trigger. And I would actually be very happy to see that I'm feeling triggered at that moment. And then I think to myself, I can't wait till this happens again because I want to see if I'm going to react the same way. triggers and emotions are very difficult to identify. And for me, it is a great pleasure right now to identify said triggers and how I react.
Because when you're getting into that emotion that's building, um, we can choose to fuel it
That's right.
or squash it,
That's right.
and that's the thing. So he says, like, he refers to that as the parasite.
Yes, the
And
parasite.
when we
Yes.
kill the parasite, we kill the parasite by starving it of
Starving
its
it.
food.
Well, three ways. He said three ways.
There, okay. Well, one of them is,
Is
you
starving.
know,
Yes.
is starving it.
He said the best way is starving it.
The best way, because the chapter starts out with, are we free to be who we really are?
Right.
Because we blame other things outside of ourselves to stop us from being free, from, and we take this view of being the victim, and we make these claims that, and then, but if you take the view of the warrior, we say that things happen to us is just normal. That's things happen to us in life. So we have to rebel, and the
Right.
warrior is the one that rebels, that goes to war against these thoughts and our emotions that come up. Like, being a warrior gives us the opportunity to transcend the dream of the planet being domesticated, and that's the dream that we'll call heaven. Um, is saying, like, we don't need to blame our parents or other people who've done things to us, um, because what else could they teach us but what they know? What they know. Um, so it's time to stop the abuse, whatever the abuse is that we perceive that are happening. But it's time to free ourselves from seeing ourselves as the victim. Um, and
Wow.
that problem is what you were talking about, when we need to become the master of awareness, so that we can master transformation, so that we can master what our
Love.
intention is to bring in, to master love. Yeah. And if our intent is unconditional love, it changes the whole way that we approach anything.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Shall we do a card?
Let's do cards, and then we'll wrap it up at 4.
Okay. All right. Next card is take actions without expectation of reward, without expecting a reward. Do your best and take the action because you love it, not because you expect a reward. When you take action without expecting a reward, you enjoy every action and you can even receive greater rewards than you imagined. Wow. That's almost like saying, take the journey. Let's say we took the journey of carnivore. We took the journey of carnivore because we like meat. It's just that simple.
We also wanted to. Again, the
Also
thing, you can
wanted to.
tell other
Right,
people
right,
about it, but if they don't want to, they're not going to
right,
take that. They're
right.
not going to do it, and they're not going to love it if they did do it and they were being forced to do it.
And the
Right?
reward is the journey, not what's at the end. So, for example, getting the body that we want, right? That would be at the end. That would be expecting a reward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
It
fascinating.
is always the journey, because you're learning so many little things along the way about yourself that you didn't expect to learn. It's bigger than what you thought you were going to get as the reward. Um, it's more rewarding in that sense than the reward itself, because we have these ideas of things that we want, that we think that would make us happy,
Yes, yes. And
and
usually
then
we're wrong.
usually we're wrong. But
Yeah,
the journey we took to get to that thing, we learned other things.
right,
That
right.
that's what it
Well
is.
said. Another card says, practice makes the master. By doing your best over and over, you can master the art of transformation. By doing your best, the habits of misusing your words, taking things personally, and making assumptions will become weaker and less frequent with time.
And David says, for him, the trigger made him remember the past, and then he has to decide what
Oh,
to do, knowing what happened before.
okay. If a trigger gets you to remind you of the past, which I know how that feels, And I'm asking you this, Amaline. Do you know about the part that he talks about forgiveness?
Yes.
So if you're triggered by your past, have you forgiven yourself and also let go? Are you still taking your past personally?
Well, I know what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. Because, I think it's hard for people to get into the idea of forgiving because you're saying what they did, you're condoning it in a way. You're saying that, but that's not really what it is. And I think that once people understand that it makes it easier. And I'm going to say yes. I'm over. It took me a long time, but I am very much over everything that happened in the past. Um, I'm not in that one respect to that relationship, and yes, I did forgive myself, but I also saw that, um, you know, I I was thankful for what I did because it brought me more closer to being who I really am. Being more honest and truthful with who I am. It's like you cannot just if something's not meant to be, it's not. It's just you have to, accept that. Um, for somebody who's getting triggered, to I think what they're saying in the current present day and taking actions based on things that happened to them in the past.
Right.
When they're in a moment and maybe PTSD and it's something is happening that is like a subconscious wound, right? Like we hear a
Right.
loud sound, fireworks go off and it triggers us to duck and cover, you
Right.
know, um, that's an automatic response that was built up. And I know that there's certain things you can't just will yourself
Can't. It's
out of, that it takes a lot of different kinds of things like and we do talk about the vagal nerve and some other things. So um sometimes we can't just want to move on and just go like a light switch, turn the switch and be like, oh, we're out of love with that person. Oh, we no longer feel this way about this thing that happened to us. So I do think that time is a factor of the healing of that wound before, contending with ourselves, before we can just decide that we're going to act differently.
yes. I want to say that for me, the triggers, which is almost like punishing myself over and over again for a mistake I've done in the past, or let's say like you said shrapnel or bomb or whatever that you duck and cover kind of thing. I think all of that does take time, like Amaline says, but it's also time under we can be aware of the trigger and then acknowledge the trigger and whether we need to forgive ourselves for that time. What I'm trying to say is the trigger is our sign that we are not completely healed. Use the trigger as the sign that there is something that
The
needs to be dealt
awareness.
with. That's right. Be
Because our
aware of
brain
that.
actually has neurons and we have to rewire them
Rewire them. Yeah.
because we have trained ourselves in this domestication of whatever happens to us. um our brains learn, and on a subconscious level we're doing things we're not even aware of in response to our environment and our surroundings. Like I do not have the choice that my body gets inflamed when I breathe in mold.
Great point.
That's I can just be aware of that I'm in a place where there's mold and not go crazy
Right.
and hysterical, and just calmly get myself out of there and do the best that I can to remove whatever I just breathed in, whether I
Right.
have to sweat it out or whatever, because I can't, my body doesn't process it,
Yes.
detox it out properly.
I love how you made that example because the being aware of the trigger is what can get you. That can be the gift for you to get out of that situation,
Right.
or how to. You figure out, hey, this is my trigger, mold. Okay, well, I shouldn't be in this environment. Let me get out of that. So, should your trigger get to a point where it was your environment, removing yourself from the environment would be critical first. Second part is observe that said trigger and seeing if there's anything that we can do to make it even better.
And it's really,
Because
really hard
that's
for people
tough.
who
That's
are
tough.
stuck in an environment that
Yes.
they
Oh
cannot
my
get out
God.
of,
Right.
an abusive environment.
Yes.
And, you know, they're going to know that they're going to have to be protected in a protective stance. And just to be aware that constantly to remind themselves of their inner truth and their inner value, because and find their until they can work their way out of being in that environment, you know, because we have to do what we can do, the best that we can do at that moment until we can get ourselves all the way out of that or away from that situation.
It's difficult. But no one said going to heaven was easy, right?
Michelle
Last
said,
card. Oh, sorry, go on.
oh, go ahead.
Shall we do the last card?
Right, and then we'll go with comments.
Okay, perfect. It says, express your own divinity. You don't need the acceptance of others. You don't need knowledge or great philosophical concepts. You have the right to be you. And you express your own divinity by being alive and by loving yourself and others. Wow. That is a true self acceptance right there, these words right here. You don't even need to feel like you're smart. You don't need knowledge. You don't need to be a great philosopher. You just have the right to be you. I love
You
that.
don't even need to be, I'll be honest, like if you like when people aren't treating you right, you still need to recognize your own divinity,
That's right.
and that it doesn't matter, you
Right
know,
or
their
wrong.
thought, their whatever there is going on in their dream
Yes. Wow.
is not the truth. And David says that would be the learning part for me, the trigger, you know, deciding what to do based from what happened to them before, you know, how they're going to react now, in spite of what their inclinations, their automatic responses are. Just being in the awareness of that response that you're having is that step. You know, the master of awareness, because that leads to the transformation. And then
Yeah.
Michelle says, ah, right, forgiving yourself. I forgot about that part. LOL. Seriously, probably cannot move on without doing so. Yes, yes. And on your last comment, thank you, Coach Raymond. A nice card to read every morning before you leave the house. The divinity one, right?
Yes, it
You,
is.
you
It's a
are,
great one.
yes, your
Express
pure
your own
divinity.
divinity. Yes. I want to say on that comment for Michelle, you know, forgiving yourself in that book, it says, don't forgive others for their sake, forgive them for your sake. So you can stop poisoning yourself with these words about them.
That's a good point about forgiveness, going back to that. I
Yeah.
mean,
You
and
ever
it,
heard about that? Drinking, hating somebody is like drinking poison and wishing that they would die.
hmm,
You ever heard that saying?
no, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hang on, I'll
because it's
pull
a
it up.
wasting of our energy to be even going back there and putting ourselves through these emotional states. It's depleting us
Yeah.
and keeping us from our joy and being in the present moment,
Oh,
which is
and
doing our best.
maybe I said this wrong. It says holding on to anger is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
It's so draining to be angry.
It is angry or not forgiving that person because you're holding on to an energy. And does it
Now
right?
let's
The
talk
energy.
about that emotion right before we go, because I really feel like, emotions mean energy, emotion. If you feel anger rising up in you,
Wait. Slow down. I really liked what you said there, but you said it very quickly. Emotion,
emotion
energy,
is energy and
emotion.
motion.
I
And when you
love that.
feel that energy rising up in you, you have the decision, because that emotion can override your rational mind. And that is, to me, is called a possession. That's when
Yes.
energy, that's an energy that you are allowing to take over you. and not be in your rational mind. You have the right to feel anger, but
Yes.
not to have it come over you and come out of you and affect other people. I feel that's where it's now possessing you.
Yes.
There's a movie. I've been watching The Power of the Rings, on TV, and it's about at one point this troll is saying to his father, "Take off that ring," and he's like, "I know you can't tell me what to do. I have, like he's like, well, it's like you're not an owner of the ring. The ring is owning you." That's when you have to realize that emotion is owning you, and you're not in control anymore. Because I have seen people rage and just allow that to come out of them, and that can become an addiction, a habit that and it's so you can't reason with the person. It doesn't matter what you say or do. There's no putting out that fire unless they put it out. And I just feel like you don't want to do that to yourself, and you don't want to be around people like that.
Yeah. I do want
um
to say that, because I've been questioning a little bit lately, who am I? Am I my emotions? Am I my thoughts? Am I my needs? And it's interesting to ask ourselves these questions, I think, at least when I was exploring it. Because a lot of the things that I've, as a conclusion, I don't know if this helped me. I believe that my emotions are not me. And here's why. Because emotions are lies. If I felt angry at you, Amaline, I would speak to you differently. But tomorrow, let's say I was happy with you, I would speak to you totally differently. So those are lies, right? Because to me, the emotion is leading me to become a certain action that's not true to who really I am. Now, my thoughts are the same thing. My thoughts are flaky from one moment to the next. It's like, ooh, squirrel. That's where my thought went. Squirrel. Okay.
mhm.
So that's not really me. So I started actually deep inside trying to observe who is me. Then I found out about needs. When my needs are met, that's when me shows up. When my needs, whether they be safety, whether they be the need to be loved, feel loved, whatever those needs are that I need at that moment, and when I meet them, that's where I feel me coming out. That's what I learned for myself, but I don't
Mhm.
know if this rings through to you or anyone else.
I feel that sometimes when you recognize patterns of behavior that aren't good, um, and that, like, say, because we all grow up in homes where imperfect, like, nobody's perfect. Nobody comes from a perfect home, but we all grow up learning behaviors from other people that were around. Um, and so every day when I'm finding myself in a similar situation, I try to take time to just double check if I'm just doing something as a learned behavior,
Yes.
versus being true to, like, my nature, like my real, that divine nature inside. He talks about going, like, when you see a child, how they're really able to express their love and their joy easily and untainted by any experiences. And as we become adults, we react differently to people. We're altered, and by always doing your best is the path of the warrior that's going to break. We're going to talk about breaking agreements, into the
Next chapter.
next chapter, but, like, you're breaking that domestication.
Yes.
Um, so I just want to end it here because we're at time, and I think it's a good place to start going into the next call. And I thank you, Michelle and David, for participating in the call. Really appreciated
We
that.
appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much. Thank
All
you,
right,
Emily.
guys. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.